Carousel. The carousel component is used as a slideshow for various kinds of content, and it comes with controls, indicators and captions and different options for behavior. We see here that we first have a normal carousel, and it keeps on going to the next slide even though we only have 3 different slides here. On our next one we see that we have arrows that we can use to control our slides with. We can also use our keyboard left and right arrow. Then we see a carousel with indicators in the bottom that we can click to navigate between the different slides. Then we see a carousel with captions on each slide. Then we see a carousel with all of these things together. And finally we see a carousel that has some options defined by data attributes. For this carousel, it won't continue from the beginning. You can see that it's been stopped here at the 3rd slide. While we can change the slide with the arrows, we are not able to control it with the keyboard. The speed between each slide, the interval, has also been set, and we have set the carousel to continue even though I'm hovering on top of it. If I was hovering on one of the other carousels, the slideshow would pause until I hover outside again. Then it will continue. Alright, let's see how we build this. First we need a wrapping div element, which will give the ID carousel. We need to add the classes carousel and slide, and to initialize this with the JavaScript we need to add the data write attribute with the value carousel. Inside this we create a div element with the class carousel inner, like so, and then we create our first item, a div tag with the class carousel item. Inside this we put an image with the source being an image from place holded with the dimensions 1200 times 600 pixels. We'll give it the alt text first slide and the class dblock and img fluid to make the image responsive if we resize the window. Let's just copy this slide 2 times and change the alt text. Now we don't see anything. This is because we need to add the active class to one of our carousel items. We'll add it to the first one, and now we'll see the carousel being loaded, and it automatically starts to change slide. It will continue to do so unless I hover the mouse above it. It will stop until I hover off again. Alright, now we'll add controls to our carousel. We start with creating an anchor tag with the href being the ID of our carousel, which is carousel, and the class carousel control prev for the previous control, the role button, since this is a button, and the data slide attribute with the value prev. This is to communicate with the JavaScript code. Inside this link, we'll add a span tag with the class Carousel control prev icon to generate the actual icon, and the area hidden attribute with the value true, since we don't want this information for screen readers. We'll also add another span tag with the class SR only, since this is for screen readers. That is the word next. So the word next is for screen readers and the icon is for screens. Now we'll just copy this code and change the classes to carousel control next, the data slide attribute value to next, and the span class to carousel control next icon. We forgot to put the hash in our href attribute. Now let's see. Now we can control the slides in our carousel. Great. Now let's add some indicators. We do this in the top of our code because this is an ordered list element. We give it the class carousel indicators. Now we need to add some list items when we need to give it the data target attribute, the value being the ID of our carousel, and then the data slide to attribute with the value being the number of our slide starting from 0. We'll also need to add the class active for our active slide. Let's duplicate this twice. Remove the active class and change the data slide to value. Now we have our carousel with indicators in the bottom that we can click, and they will also change when the slide changes automatically. If we want to add captions to our slides, we can add that right after our image. We create a div tag with the class carousel caption. Inside this, we can create, for example, a heading and a paragraph. This text describes our first slide. Just change the text like so. Now we have captions for all of our slides. Great. We can control the behavior of the carousel by adding data attributes to the carousel div. Notice that we've already used the data write attribute with the value carousel to make the carousel autoplay unload. If we change the value to false, which is the default value, it will start after the user manually cycles the first slide. So let's try this. Now it doesn't start automatically. We need to click on the arrow like so, or we could click on the indicator in the bottom. With the data attribute data pause, we can choose whether or not the carousel should pause when the user hovers it. The default is hover, but we'll change that by adding the attribute without any value. This refers to the value null. So I'll write data pause. We'll change the data write attribute back to carousel. Now it should start automatically again, and then when we hover it, we'll see that it's not affected. It still continues. That's what we can use data pause for. With the data attribute data wrap, we can choose whether or not the carousel should cycle continuously or have hard stops. The default value is true, so we will add the attribute with the value false. Data wrap and the value false. So now let's see what happens after the third slide. We see that nothing happens since it now have a hard stop. With the data attribute data interval, we can set the delay time in milliseconds between slide transitions. We will add the attribute with the value 2000 to make the carousel go faster. Now we can see that it goes a lot faster. Finally, the last data attribute we can use to control the behavior of the carousel is the data keyboard attribute. The default value is true, meaning that the carousel reacts to keyboard events when using the arrow left and right. We can see that here. Now I go to the left and now to the right, right and left. This can be disabled by using the value false. So we will add the data keyboard attribute with the value false. Now, when I click the arrow, nothing happens. This was all about the carousel component.